there is no written record of who built these structures and when. But the official dating states that the megalithic temples of Malta have been built between 4000 and 2500 BC. Now, the official dating is not based on carbon dating nor astronomical dating. This is based on the belief that the island of Malta was only populated by 5900 BC. This idea, though, has already been questioned, because on Malta, in a cave called Ghar, teeth have been found that suggest that these teeth are Neanderthal, and the Neanderthal lived between 430,000 and 40,000 years ago. So this suggests that actually the populations in Malta are much older than what we thought. Also, we have to consider that we had in the past much lower sea levels. So we do know that around 14,000 BC, Malta was actually one landmass together with its neighboring island Sicily. And Sicily has a recorded history, human history, that is at least 14,000 years old. So we do know that, let's say around 10,000 BC, we had people living on Sicily, which by that time was still connected to Malta. So it is very highly unlikely that Malta was only populated by 5900 BC. This then questions the official dating of the temples. Then we have two routes we can go. If there's no written records, we can look at carbon dating and astronomical dating. Now, carbon dating has never been done in Malta, but astronomical dating has been done. So when we look at astronomical dating, we basically look at the alignment of the temple passage. So in Malta, we find every temple has the same design. We have a temple passage, and then we have on each side sort of a lobe going off. So you get this 4-lobe clover shape. And usually at the end of the temple passage, you find an altar. Now, for most of the sites around the world, we do know that they are actually aligned to often equinox solstice. So there's a sun alignment, there's also partially moon alignments. We also know there are star alignments. With Malta, it is very interesting. We have over 60 temples that we know of. And we only know one temple, which is Mayandra, which is aligned to the equinox and solstice, as many other sites around the world. None of the other temples points in the same direction. So none of them is built exactly to the same direction. But what the researchers found that they're building a cluster around the compass region of east and west of due south. And now there has been incredible research done by Leni Reddyke, and she published a book on this, where she looked at, okay, when we look at this cluster of the temples, is there a star, one star, that these temples could be aligned to over time? Because we have to consider the idea that these temples were built at different times, right? And when we look over time, we factor in precession. So precession is the gradual shift of the apparent orientation of the star field when observed from a particular position on Earth. So if you're standing in a temple passage and the temple passage is aligned towards a certain star, this star basically shifts 1 degree every 72 years. So if you want to have a true alignment to the passage in the altar, you would have to build a new temple roughly every 72 to 100 years. And indeed, Leni Reddyke found one star that all of these temples in Malta are aligned to. And this is serious. Now, what she has then done is that she dated the temple age based on the alignment to Sirius, and when Sirius was basically at that position on the horizon. Now, Sirius overall for Malta as an island came back into view around 9200 BC. And according to our research, the oldest temple, if you look at the alignment to Sirius, is Hagar Krim North. And Hagar Krim North would then be built around 9150 BC. So this pushes back the official dating of the temples that says they are not older than 4000 BC to actually 9000 to 10,000 BC. Now, there is another researcher that has found a similar thing, Erich van Deniken, because he looked actually into the solstice alignment of Mayandra. We know Mayandra, this one of the temples of Malta, is aligned to the solstice. But when you look at Mayandra and when you look again at Precession, you actually see that around the same time frame, 9000 to 10,000 BC, the solstice was actually exactly aligned, not to the point it is now, but to the stone, to the real altar stone, on slightly on the side of where it is falling right now, and this would actually be a real alignment to the solstice. So this also pushes back another temple into that time frame, 9000 to 10,000 BC. Now, according to the research that Leni Redek has done, right, a new temple has been built around roughly every 100 years. So the temples do go until roughly, I believe, 2500 BC. Sirius alignment. The history of the Syrian star system is actually really intertwined with the history here of Earth and humanity. They have shaped our history more than any other galactic race, and there are actually many different races on Sirius. Now, the Syrians, in the higher fractions of the Syrians, are the original builders of planetary architecture. They're the guardians of God's Trinity, God's essence, of the sacredness and blueprint of life. But as duality is everywhere, it is also among the Syrian star system, and we're finding here different groups that align to different principles. So the groups, the higher fraction of the Syrian races that are the guardians of the law of one, that are in service to others, these are groups from Sirius B and C. These are Lyran, Syrian groups and other Syrians. We also have a group that's connected to Sirius that is really in service to self. They kind of split off. They wanted to experience the other part of the duality, to dominate and rule over others, to establish class systems on planets, to put in division, slavery, wars, etc. They are primarily associated to Sirius A and to what we call throughout our historic records Nibiru and Marduk. And we also know them as the fallen angelic Anunnaki group. And let's look at the moment at the Dogon tribe. So the Dogon tribe is an African tribe with roots actually in the Mediterranean that knew more about Sirius than science at the time. They already knew about Sirius B and C before science had discovered them. And they have always told in their stories that beings from Sirius came to shape the history of humanity and to influence us, and that these were amphibious beings. Let's look for a moment at other evidence of amphibious beings throughout our history, and we find them first in Oannes and later also in the Mesopotamian gods, especially Enki. And the Mesopotamian pantheon. And the Mesopotamian pantheon is actually the Anunnaki. And they present themselves on Earth, this pantheon of semi-gods present themselves here as the creator of humanity. I think though we really ought to investigate our history with the Anunnaki in detail to understand, are the Anunnaki, did they come here in service to self or in service to others? Because when we look at the civilization that throughout our history were basically based on Anunnaki teachings and on the advancement they said they brought to our planets. Yes, we had science, we had writings, etc. These are the civilizations of Mesopotamia. This is what I would call, it is in history called ancient Egypt, but I would call this modern Egypt because the Egyptian pyramids are much, much older. They go back pre-flood. So a lot of the Anunnaki history is really post-flood, is post 10,000 BC, even though I believe they came earlier to our planet, but a lot of the history that they shaped primarily is really the civilizations after 10,000 BC. And so we have, of course, advanced civilizations, but when we look at that time, starting from 10,000 BC, from the fall of Atlantis, we had actually very dark eons in humanity. We had a lot of division. We had civilizations that were involved in warfare, in slavery, in the suppression of the feminine. We had very patriarchal civilizations where power and money ruled. We have still to this day, right, the suppression of the healthy masculine. So what is really the legacy of the Anunnaki that they brought to this planet? What role have they played here on our planet? And the story that they are the creator of Homo sapiens, is that story true? So their story is that we are coming from apes and they modified the Neanderthal to make us more advanced. Now, I'm not necessarily questioning that they made experiments with humans, made also experiments, try to create or interpret with humans, try to create some different races, but I'm truly questioning if they actually made us advanced, or if we were not already a very advanced civilization here on the planet that goes back much longer before their history. And did this story, did they write it just in our quote-unquote history books, because all our previous history was wiped out with the last great flood and last extinction events, so that they could present themselves as semi-gods, gods to be worshipped? They still to this day, Anki runs cults that worship him. So again, Malta, connection to Sirius, but which group of Sirius? Let's look at, we have with the Anunnaki, with these Mesopotamian gods, we have a lot of worship, right? A lot of worship of semi-gods, a lot of masculine energy, a lot of control, power abuse, warfare, all of these things. When you look though at the Maltese temples, there is no god worship. There is no dominance here. In fact, actually, these temples, they promote Mother Earth. They promote the feminine energy. They are protecting Mother Earth. They promote balance and growth and fertility. So I believe that the builders of the Maltese temple are actually connected to the first Syrian group, to the group that is here in service to others. And these were actually, the builders of the Maltese temples are actually the Essene Crisis Sophia Quail lineage. And this lineage goes back into 7-dimension Earth. This goes back into the timelines of Lemuria, Havelka, much before the Anunnaki came to our planet. So this lineage goes back much earlier. These were actually the first settlers on Earth. These are our ancestors. This is our DNA. This is our full strand DNA. And they always protected consciousness. They always protected life. They held life as sacred. They protected Mother Earth. And these are the protectors, the holders of the blue flame. The blue flame is one of the 3 sound waves, light waves within the triple source, the Trinity flame of God that is emitted from Sirius, as well as the blue flame is especially connected to feminine energy. And I will talk in a later video about the stargates here on Malta that's connecting to this blue flame. There's many other stargates on our planet that's protecting, that's anchoring this blue flame. And why do I also believe this is because when I opened the Akashic records of the Tarxian temple on Malta, the first thing I saw was the blue flame. And when I look at what I saw in the rituals being practiced on Malta, the lineage that practice here in these temples, the way the temples are built themselves, the way the temples promote Mother Earth, promote feminine energy, promote balance as well. So to me, this lineage is the true lineage of the first initial Essene tribes. This is the lineage of the Cathars, the lineage of the Essenes, the lineage of the Essene Templars. This is the lineage of the Celtic Druids. This is also the lineage, I will show you later, of the Melissae priestesses. This is all the same lineage. Artemis, Demeter. The lineage that has always protected the feminine essence, has protected Gaia, because she's a feminine consciousness as well, has protected the cosmic mother on our planet. And yes, these souls connect to Sirius, but this is a human lineage. This is not just like the Anunnaki, a group of extraterrestrials that came here to our planet. No, this is our initial ancestors. This is a lineage that goes back eons and eons and eons. And their connection to Sirius is also because this Trinity flame, especially the blue ray, is held in Sirius, and they wanted to anchor this here with certain stargates and temples, portals. But also, our true history, the Akashic records of our true history, there's a copy of this on Sirius, very, very protected. There is also, of course, this true history of Earth is also here on Earth herself, and we are slowly getting back access to our true history. But also they are protecting a copy of our blueprint of all the records of Earth on Sirius.